Hey everybody, hope you're having a good morning. Gonna get started on today's models. We got 10 NBA games today. They're all right there. I have the market range, what it's been so far, the model prediction, and which way it's leaning on the spread and total right there. I will go through the recap on the next slide, go through each of these games one by one, and then I have the three hockey games at the end of that, and the college games will be at the very end. All right, here's how we did yesterday. There was two spreads and two totals that were within the range of the market at some point during the day. The two spreads were Indiana and the Philly game. The Philly one we missed most of the day. It went up to 10.5 before Paul George got suspended, and then it dropped pretty far down. So most of the day it was a miss. And Indiana was the opposite. It flipped to Indiana for a split second yesterday afternoon before the game started. Most of the day it was on Atlanta. Indiana ended up pulling that one out. So and then the totals, it got the Charlotte one was within the spread. It was half a point over the bottom, and that was the under. So pretty close, but missed that one. And then Chicago, Miami. That one ended up going over, and it was within the range. It was at 235, so a point and a half under the highest point of the range. So most of the day, that one was also within the range. So we got three of the other four spreads and only one of the other four totals. So now we'll get into these games one by one. All right, first game we're going to get into is Milwaukee going to Boston. Milwaukee does have the only win in head-to-head matches. They won 116-101 on December 11th. That was in Milwaukee. But Boston has obviously been the better team lately, especially with Giannis out. I believe Porter Jr. is still going to be out. Boston is 15-8 at home, 6-4 in their last 10, and 3-2 in their last 5. Milwaukee is 9-16 on the road. They're 2-8 in their last 10, and they've lost 4 straight. The model likes Boston to win by 9, 114-105. Vegas has it at about a 14-point spread right now. So they're even heavier on Boston. Boston looked pretty clean on the injury report from what I saw. So unless they get some people added in late, it doesn't look like they'll have anything affecting them there. So the model's been pretty strong. It's been 6 points early in the week, bumped up to 8, up to 10, dropped to 8 on day 5 or day 6, and back up to 9 today. So if you look at it, the lines have been pretty steady. Milwaukee slowly been dropping off, a couple bumps back up, but Boston has been pretty steady right around that 113, 114, all except for day 2. So it's pretty confident around the score that it thinks Boston's going to get. I think that's a really, really large spread, even with a team that's been struggling. The thing is, Boston does have the shooters that can get hot and put up a lot of points, especially if Jaylen Brown is playing again today, if Keta's back. If they're full, good to go, then Milwaukee's going to have a hard time. But like I said, I don't like doing the 14-point spreads. I would probably try to find something a little closer to the 9 if you can find a good range, if you're trying to do a parlay and not actually just straight bet it. But the total is at about 218. The model has it at 219. So it is right there, slightly on the overside, but it's been dropping below all week long. It started at about 220, dropped to 214, and then it's just been kind of bouncing around. And it finally ended up on the overside, but it's not super confident in that total. I think if you end up getting on the underside, if it is a lower total, I think Boston has a harder time covering that spread. I don't see them winning like one. I don't know. I guess they could, but Boston hasn't been a team that's really just been blowing people out. A lot of their games have been pretty close, and I just don't see the 13.5. So I wouldn't take Milwaukee. I don't have confidence in that either. It's just one that I would probably stay away from. On the total, I'd probably just bump it down. If you can get it around that 212, 214 range, somewhere in there at a good line, maybe bump that down and see if you can find Boston with 9, put those together, see what that comes out to. I don't know. To be honest, I think Boston's props are probably the better option here. Milwaukee's already not a great rebounding team. Without Giannis, they're even worse. So Keto should be able to get in there, get some rebounds. Obviously, if Jaylen Brown is playing, I don't see them being able to stop him. I would expect him to get his rebounds. I would expect him to get his points. Pritchard was really hot last game. He's just been super streaky. Derek White had an off game last game, so maybe you want to look at him a little bit more, see how he's done against Milwaukee. Coming off of a slightly worse than average game for him with Jaylen Brown out, maybe he gets a couple open looks today and starts knocking them down, feeling good. So that Boston team has a lot of weapons. Anthony Simons coming off the bench is another really good look. So Walsh has been playing really well, but like I said, I don't think I would go for the spread unless you're bumping it down to the Boston side. And then that over under just seems a little risky to me. Milwaukee still has players that can shoot threes. They have Turner that can step outside and hit them. They have Green that can hit them. So I wouldn't count them out on putting up at least some points in this game. Our next game is going to be Brooklyn going to Detroit. Detroit is a better home team. They're 18-5 at home. They're 7-3 in their last 10 and 3-2 in their last 5. On the injury report, they do have Cade Cunningham as probable, so I would imagine he's going to play, but there is a chance he may not. Brooklyn is 7-17 on the road, 2-8 in their last 10, and 1-4 in their last 5. They've only won 2 of their last 14 games. Detroit does have the head-to-head win, 125-107. That was in Brooklyn back on November 7th, so early in the season. Clowney's the only person listed as out for Brooklyn. That hasn't been on there consistently. So the model likes Detroit to win, but it likes it a lot closer, 107-111. Detroit doesn't typically blow out a lot of people. They play a lot of close games, so I can kind of see that. Looks like they took a huge hit when they got blown out by Phoenix. Before that, the market was really strong on them. The model was 9 points, and then up to 12, 13. After that Phoenix loss, they dropped really far. The Phoenix loss was on the road, so I don't think that is going to end up happening here. Brooklyn doesn't have a Dylan Brooks. They have Michael Porter Jr. He can put up a lot of points, but he's kind of alone. That game against Phoenix, Detroit had Dylan Brooks just went off on him. Gillespie came out and played well. Grayson Allen had a good game. So, and then they played really good defense, which is not Brooklyn's strong point. Brooklyn's defensive rating is almost 120, one of the worst in the leagues. Detroit's defensive rating is 105. And then if you look at the offenses, Brooklyn is actually worse than Detroit, 107. Detroit is 111. So Detroit's middle of the pack. Brooklyn is just bad on both sides of the ball. So while I think that's a huge spread at 13 points from Vegas, I do think that it's possible, but I think Brooklyn has a really good chance of covering this too. The model only likes Detroit to win by 4. It likes the total at about 218, which is also a few points over. So the total's been mostly consistent. The first couple of days it jumped up real quick and then dropped right down, but it's been 217, 218 for 4 of the 7 days. So it's liking the over quite a bit. As long as Brooklyn can score, I like the over. Obviously, Brooklyn going on the road, they've had a couple really bad losses. The one at Madison Square Garden by almost 50 points. And then they had another one that was pretty bad a couple games after that. I can't remember who they played. But Brooklyn has games where they hang around till the very end, and then they just lose. And then they have games where they get blown out. And that's the risk of this game. It's definitely, to me, the Brooklyn side. You just don't know what you're going to get with that team. On this game, I think I would probably just take the over. I think there's a better chance of Brooklyn getting a little bit hot and covering that low total of 214, 215 than for Detroit to cover that spread. But I also, like, same as last game with Milwaukee, I don't trust Brooklyn to do much of anything consistently. So, like I said, if the spread was closer, I'd be full on board with Detroit. I think they can cover that. There's just been some games recently that make me question such a big spread against them. So, like I said, the total, maybe even bump it down and try to take the over. I should be able to still get a good line, but not a great game with such a bad team in it. All right, now we are headed back to Miami for game 3 in a row between these teams. So on Thursday, Miami won 116-113 in Chicago yesterday with a lot of players sitting. Chicago won 125-118. It was in Miami. Miami also won in Chicago 143-107 back in early November. So Miami has the 2-1 lead on this. The only game Chicago won was with a lot of starters sitting. More starters were actually sitting on the Chicago side than the Miami side, but obviously Powell being out was a big hit for for Miami, along with Hero already out and Mitchell was out. So Powell and Mitchell look questionable today. Hero looks questionable. Seen him on there a couple times and he still didn't play questionable, so I wouldn't hold out on him too much. Looks like Chicago's going to be playing most of their players again. They still have White, Smith, and Giddey questionable. Vucevic is probable, so he's likely going. As long as Powell goes, I think I like Miami again. But Chicago has been playing better. Their backups played really well yesterday. And really the only person that was out for Miami was Powell. And it looks like Chicago is going to be getting multiple people back likely. So Miami's 15-9 at home. They're 5-5 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5. Chicago's 9-14 on the road, 6-4 in their last 10, 2-3 in their last 5. If you look at the ratings, Chicago's got the better offensive rating. Both defensive ratings are pretty similar. Miami's only down at about 113, so it's still pretty average for their offensive rating, but Chicago's just been really hot lately. That's why you see the total has been going up more. If you look at day one, it was down at about 227, and it has steadily gone up every single day, 231 up to 239 today. The market has it about 236, so a few points on the overside of that. If everybody does end up playing, I do like that to go over. Vegas does have Miami still 3 to 4 point favorites. My model ended up flipping. I guess it's been on Chicago all week for this game. Pretty close. Yeah, yes, that's right. It was Chicago by 1 point yesterday. So it added a few points. It's been on Chicago, went to a push, then went back to Chicago and grew stronger with the win yesterday. Like I said, a lot of people sat yesterday. The model's not going to have that factored in because it doesn't know who's going to sit tonight. So for consistency, I do not add in the injuries. I let them play out through the rolling averages. There's multiple rolling averages that are used in these. So if anyone sits for multiple games, it'll get factored in. If it's just a one game, it doesn't really mess with it. So on this one, the total definitely looks like the stronger side. Obviously, there was an issue on Thursday with the total, but that was the only game that went under. That one was 116, 113. So not too far under. Maybe you want to tease it down to around that 230 line. See if you can find a good line there. That 229 is the lowest of the 3 games so far. And even being on the second day of a back-to-back, they rested enough players yesterday. I think the pace should still be going on this game. So I do think it'll get to a higher total. The side is where I'm not totally sure. Like I said yesterday, I was definitely on Miami. A lot of that was they had won the 2 so far, and this season, a lot of teams that have been winning against teams have kept on winning against teams. But I think a lot of that was still injuries. Bam had a slow start. He had a really strong finish in the fourth quarter, but I think he only had like 6 or 7 points going into the fourth quarter, finished with over 20. So if he can get going today earlier, especially if Powell's playing, I think that should help open it up. If Hero somehow comes back, that will obviously be a big boost. If Mitchell even plays, that's going to be big for their bench. So I do like Miami if everyone plays. If they don't play, I think I would probably take Chicago with the points. And then the total, if they don't play, I still think I would take the over. They showed yesterday with backups that they can still score. So I don't think there's great defense in this matchup, and there's enough offense that they can definitely push that total up. All right, next game is going to be Utah going to Toronto. Model likes Toronto 118 to 111, so 7 points and a 229 on the total. The Vegas has it at an 11-point spread and 233, 234 on the total. So the model likes Utah to cover the spread. It also likes the under. The under is always risky with these teams. Sometimes they don't score, and sometimes they score a ton of points. So Toronto is 13-11 at home. They are 5-5 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5, and nothing looked new on their injury report. There's no head-to-head data. Utah's 5-17 on the road, 1-9 in their last 10 games, and they've lost 5 straight. So they do still have injuries. Nurkic was questionable. George was questionable. Love was questionable, but it looked like Markkanen's playing. So getting a piece back, if George and Nurkic both go, that's going to be huge for Utah. Obviously, they need all of their starters because they are not that deep of a team. Utah, I think, is the worst defense in the team. 123.4 recent on their defensive rating. Toronto's has been 114, so not great, but way better than Utah's. Both offenses have been about the same. If you look at the model, it's been really confident and consistent throughout the week, slowly dropping on the total from 237 down to 229, but that spread has been really consistent. 5.5 went up to 6.5, 8.5, and it's been right there. 8. The farthest it went down was right around 7, which is where it is today. Toronto's line, though, if you look, 121, 121, 119, like that's super consistent on their team total, which may be an option you want to go with today. I don't know what their line is set at, but Utah's not a great defensive team. Toronto should be putting up points. If you can find anything around that 120 line, 115 line even, would be better. But it looks like they should be putting up points. The model does like it, and the injuries would honestly, those injuries could actually affect them to lower the score. If George doesn't play, some of that playmaking could be gone, and if Utah can't put up points against Toronto, Toronto's not going to push the ball too much. But I still think they should pass that mark because Utah just gives up points to everybody. So I think my favorite side on this one would be Toronto, a few points lower on the spread. If you don't like to tease spreads down, if you're doing straights, I'm not sure this is the aim. At least not until you find some injury information. The prop should be good on this game. A lot of good players. Ingram, Barnett, Barnes, always good. Points for Ingram probably. Barnett and Barnes a lot of times good rebounds, points, and assists. Just depends on the matchup with them. So Markkanen should have a lot of good points if he's healthy, which he looked in the one game he came back like he was, but then he sat again, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on. But he had his rebounds and he got his points in the game he came back. So I would expect that from him again today. I don't think Toronto is going to just lock him down or anything. So to be honest, player props is probably my favorite in this matchup. All right, next game is Sacramento at Washington. Vegas actually has Sacramento favored to win by 2.5 and has the total at about 230. My model likes Washington to win by 4, and it likes the total at about 226. So it's looking at Washington on the money line and spread side at good odds, and it likes the under. The under I would not be as confident in. Both of these teams struggle on defense. They're not the best offenses, but when bad offenses play bad defenses, the offenses typically win. So, at least from what I've noticed. So, it's been on Washington 4 points, 2 points, up to 7, 6. So, Washington finally won a couple games, and Sacramento has lost 8 straight now. Sacramento's 3-22 on the road. They're 2-8 in their last 10, and like I said, they've lost the last 8. Washington is 8-16 at home. They are 2-8 in their last 10 as well, but they're 2-3 in their last 5. They lost the last game after winning 2 straight. I did not see Chris Middleton on the injury report. I believe he just sat to rest because it was a back-to-back last game. The 2 games he's played since he came back, Washington has looked like a different team. The ball movement, just the speed of getting down the court, like they look like a functioning team again. So injury report looked like it had Sarr as questionable for Washington, and they still had Trey Johnson out. So young talent there, 3-point shooter, but they got a lot of that. On the Sacramento side, they had Malik Monk questionable, Russell Westbrook questionable, and DeAndre Hunter, recently acquired for Schroeder and Ellis, is also questionable. So just came over from Cleveland. I don't know if he'll be playing today since he just got traded yesterday, but they have him as questionable, so he may be in there. I don't think that's going to be a boost for Sacramento over Schroeder or Ellis. Dennis Schroeder's been playing really well for them. So I think they do need Monk and Westbrook in this game, just with the way that Washington's been playing. I think they need some people that'll push the pace a little bit. Like I said, Washington still not a great offensive team, but they have some 3-point shooters there. Like I said, with Chris Middleton, the ball was moving better. They just looked like a better offense. They were getting off to a much faster start in the games. So, like I said, the model's been pretty confident on Washington all week long. Sacramento was favored. So, You can take them on the spread. You can get 2 points. If they lose by 2, you'll still be okay. But the model likes them to win. The way I've been seeing both of these teams playing, Washington looks like the better team right now. The games that they were losing, even when they lost 9 in a row, the last few, they weren't losing by much. They were sticking around. They were playing tough. So Sacramento, it just doesn't look good. They won 4 in a row, and then they just went straight back to losing 8 straight. So I'm definitely on the Washington side here. The way they've been playing, I'm becoming more and more of a fan. I think that they're going to upset some teams in the future that people probably won't expect. But the total side, like I said, I would go over. The model's saying under slightly. I would go over. I don't trust these defenses, and I think that each team has players that can get hot and put up points. It's a low enough total that I think it should end up going over in this game, in my opinion. All right, next matchup is going to be Orlando going to San Antonio. My model likes San Antonio 115 to 111 by 4. Vegas has the spread at 5 to 6 or 7. Has the total at 225. My model has it at 226, so 1 point on the overside. They have one head-to-head matchup. San Antonio won 114 to 112 in Orlando on December 3rd, so about 2 months ago. And that was a 226 total, exactly what the model has, 1 point under what Vegas has, or actually right around if it's at that 225.5 right now. So the model grew stronger on San Antonio, and then San Antonio lost that last game. So, and that was New Orleans. So after losing to New Orleans, it is a little more skeptical. Orlando won a couple games, so it pulled the spread a little closer. But it was growing pretty quick midweek to San Antonio by about 10. Orlando had lost 4 games by 14 points. That's going to be one of the biggest factors. Now that they're not doing that, the model's trying to recorrect and get back to what the team's playing at now. The total has been super steady except for day 6. 227 down to 223, 224, 227, 27, dropped to 220, straight back to 226. So the model is fluctuating on the underside, so that's telling me it's probably going to be right around that line or under. I wouldn't go on the overside too much unless you're going to tease it down. It can happen. You never know. It's the NBA, but right now it's looking to me from the model that it's looking like the underside is the better way to go. The mismatch here looks like it's going to be San Antonio's offense against Orlando's defense. The way they've been playing in the most recent games is San Antonio 115 on the offense, Orlando 117 on the defensive rating. So the offensive rating for Orlando and defensive rating for San Antonio are very similar, 110.5 to 110.7. So the biggest thing you're going to want to look at on recent play is, can San Antonio's offense put up the number of points they've been doing, or Orlando's defense has been giving up. A lot of that's going to be from before these last 2 games that Orlando won. So you'll want to keep that in mind. That's why it is slowly shrinking back down in the spread side, as Orlando is playing better again. So they're back on the road. 10-12 on the road, 5-5 in their last 10, 2-3 in their last 5. San Antonio 16-6 at home, 5-5 in their last 10, but they're 2-3 in their last 5. So Orlando's playing a little better. San Antonio's fallen off a little bit. Franz is still out. I think he's going to be out for a while for Orlando. Sochan looks questionable, so San Antonio may get him, but he's not a huge piece in their offense anymore. He was bigger last year. But I think this might be a game where you're going to want to look at props again. I think San Antonio will win this game. I don't know if they'll cover that spread. I kind of think I like Orlando on the spread side of this game, but I'm not for sure yet. The total side, the way the market's leaning, flipping down on that under more, I like the underside, but I like props on this game. A lot of players have been scoring really well for Orlando. Anthony Black has been playing well. Bane's been playing well. Banchero's always getting rebounds. Suggs is going to be back. Then on the other side, you have Fox, Castle, Vassell, Champagny, Wemby. So a lot of good players that are pretty consistent. Fox had a pretty bad game last game. I want to say he had 11 points and 1 3-pointer. If he has a good history against Orlando, you might look at that last game, see what he did in that. I think Fox might be a good pick on this. He doesn't typically have a lot of bad back-to-back games, and the way Orlando's defense has played, I think this might be a good opportunity for him. Stefan Castle has been playing really well for San Antonio, so he's another good look. Champagne's been hitting threes and getting rebounds, and then obviously Wemby points, rebounds, blocks, whatever you want to go on for him. So I do like this game for props. I do think San Antonio will probably win, but I think I'm more on the Orlando side of the spread. And like I said, I'm leaning towards the underside of this just because the model's flipping down from the spread line and it's not going over it really. It's staying right at that 227, 226, and it's dropping off when it's falling down. So it looks like the off games go down more than they go up. All right, now we have Lakers going to the Knicks. Model has the Knicks favored 115 to about 110, so 5 points, right on the line with Vegas. They have it at 4.5 to 5. Vegas also has the total at 229, 230. Model has it at 225, so slightly on the underside there. As you can see, the model's just not really sure with LA. Day one was really low, and then day two went up, drifted back down. Now it's drifting back up. New York was pretty steady, had a slight bump up. And then, but it's been pretty steady right around that 114 to 116 point all week long. Not like LA going from 104 to 114, then dropping back to 107. That's really inconsistent. A lot of that is just the Lakers. They have some injuries, but also really inconsistent play. Luka had a triple double in the first half in the last game, and then other games. I mean, he's been one of the more consistent pieces, but there's just games where they don't score a lot of points. Their offense looks really stagnant and their defense is not great. And then there's other games where that offense is just on fire. It looks like they may get Reeves back. He's questionable today. They're 17-10 in their last, or on the road, 6-10 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5. On the other side, the Knicks are hot. They're 19-6 at home, 6-4 in their last 10. They've won 5 straight games. They are without McBride again. It looks like no head-to-head matchup on this yet. They will play again, I think, later this month. But if you want to look at the ratings, LA, good offensive rating, not a good defensive rating. 116.4, 117, almost 118 for the defense. On the other side, New York, really good on both sides of the ball recently. 117 on the offensive, 103.5 on the defensive rating. So they're putting up points and they're just not giving up a lot. I believe that Brooklyn game is still in the last 10 games, which is where the rolling averages start to fall off. And I believe that that 50-point game is probably having a big impact on that. LA is going to put up points. They're going to keep it close. Which defense is going to break or play better is the thing. Will LA actually hold New York to less, or will New York end up giving up more points? Is where I think this game falls. If New York can keep LA down, New York should win. They should cover the spread. If this gets into a shootout, I like LA at least to cover the spread at 5 points. And then at that point, I definitely like the over too. So it's a pretty low total for these two teams. Both teams can score a lot, like I said. So I do think I'm on the over side. I know on this one it's also been leaning under, but I think a lot of that has just been New York's defense is suppressing that total in the model. But it's been slowly going up. Started at 218, 227, stayed right around that 225. The fact it's only at 229, the way that Luka played last game, this is a game in Madison Square Garden, like big matchup, big venue. I expect points. So I think player props would be good. I think the over would be good. I'm a little unsure on the side. Like I said, the defenses are just the thing to me. I think LA can break New York's defense, and I think they can get this into a shootout. And I think LA can cover the spread. On the other side, I also like New York, the LA Lakers. Like I said, they can come out really cold. And if they're not hitting their shots, New York can start locking them down on defense, and then they can just slowly pull away. So I'm not taking a side on this. I'm leaning over, and I'm probably looking more at props on this game. There's a lot of really good players, and I think that is probably your better angle. All right, now we have the Clippers going to Phoenix. Phoenix has looked really, really good in their last two games at home. They blew out Detroit, they blew out Cleveland. Now they have the Clippers coming in pretty hot. Clippers did lose the last game. Jokic came back unexpectedly and had 31 points and 12 rebounds, and Denver pretty much controlled that game from start to finish. Um, Phoenix, like I said, they are a team that lives and dies by the three. Dylan Brooks has been really hot. He's been driving a lot. He's been making a lot of contact, and he gets no foul calls. I know he is an aggressive player, but some of these touch fouls that other players get, and to see Dylan Brooks just get hit every single time he goes up for a shot and not get a foul is pretty insane. If Dylan Brooks can keep hot, then Phoenix has a chance. I think he's the X factor in this game. It looks like Jalen Green may play, um, but I think Dylan Brooks is really the person you want to look at. Just the way he's been playing recently has been really good, and all of the players around him have been playing better because of that. If they get Jalen Green in there again, he's not 100%, but he still adds so much speed to that offense that they really need. Gillespie, like I said, he adds a little bit. He can drive a little bit, but they have so many big bodies on that team that like to shoot threes. They can go up and get rebounds. They can drive a little bit, but they need that fast cut and pass kind of guy. But the Clippers are 9-16 on the road, 8-2 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5. Phoenix is 17-6 at home, so way better at home. 6-4 in their last 10, 3-2 in their last 5, but they've won 3 straight, including, like I said, dominant wins against Detroit and dominant win against Cleveland in the last game. The Clippers won 129-102, like the second or third game of the season, back on October 24th at home. And Phoenix won a head-to-head back-to-back game. 11 on November 6th and November 8th. They won at home 115-102, and they won on the road 114-103. So Phoenix is 2-3 in the matchup. This will be the last one for the season. Phoenix has been playing really well lately. Both have pretty decent defenses. Not They haven't been top or bottom in the last 10 games, but they've been really good. 112 ratings. The Clippers' offensive rating has been better, 117-111. But if you break that down to the last couple games, then I think Phoenix has probably overtaken them. Phoenix in the last couple games has just looked really good. They are favored to win this game too by 1.5. The model still likes the Clippers. Like I said, Phoenix is so streaky that I don't know that I would want to pick them to cover this. I think I'm still on the Clippers on this game just because the Clippers have been more consistent over the last few weeks. Phoenix still has their hit and miss games. The 2 games they were dominant were back-to-back games, so they carried some of that over. Maybe after having a day off, they've cooled off a little bit. I'm not sure. The total's set at 214, and the model likes 218. So that's the biggest discrepancy here. I don't know why it's so low. The games they've played so far have all been over that. So literally all 3 games have been over that, and the injury list doesn't look bad. So I don't understand the 213, 214 on the total. So I am on the overside there. Both defenses have been good, but they haven't been that great, and both offenses have been playing pretty well recently. So I think my favorite is probably the over on this game. I'm probably leaning more on the Clippers side, but Phoenix has been really hot, and if they play like that again, Phoenix may blow them out. I haven't seen Phoenix play this well in quite a while. So if they can keep up the last 2 games, I watched both of those games and I was really impressed. And if they can keep that up, they can beat the Clippers. But if they go back to the way they were playing before, where they're throwing up threes and they have players that are 1 for 9, 1 for 10, they're not going to beat these Clippers. So I like the over still. I think with such a low total, even if the Suns go cold, I just don't see that not hitting. The lowest total they had was the very first game, or no, the first game of the back-to-back, which was the game in Phoenix. It was 217. Both games that Phoenix has won have been 217. The game that the Clippers won was 231. The way these teams are clicking right now, I see more of a 231 than I do a 217. So that is definitely my favorite. All right, now we have Cleveland going to Portland. Model has Cleveland 119 to 111.5, so about 7.5 point favorite. Vegas only has it at about 1.5 to 3 points, so I'm not sure where it's sitting right now. I think it may have even gone up a little more. Cleveland 3.5 last I saw. The total's right there around 229, 232. Model likes it at 231, so it is within that range. The discrepancy here is on the size of the spread. The model likes Cleveland to cover. It was a little confused early in the week, though. It's flipped to Portland on day 2, but it's grown strongly back to Cleveland, up to 7, almost 8 points, 6 points for the last 4 days. So the spread there is pretty consistent since day 4. Even day 3 was already on the upward trend. So the total has fluctuated a little bit. It dropped off really bad on day 2, and then it's gone right back up to around that 230 to 234 mark. So on the total side, I'm not entirely sure what I would do here. I think I lean on the over. I'm not super fond of either. They do have one head-to-head matchup that was 232. Portland won that 122 to 110 at home on the 3rd of December. So Cleveland is 12-10 on the road. They're 7-3 in their last 10, 4-1 in their last 5. Portland is 13-11 at home, 4-6 in their last 10. They've lost 4 straight games. Looks like Portland will be without Jrue Holiday, and Denny Avdia and Robert Williams were both questionable. So all 3 of those are pieces that help them out quite a bit, especially with the injuries they've already had to Henderson being out for a while. If you're looking at props on this, if those players don't play, Shaedon Sharpe looks like a very great player right now. He has been hitting, I think he's hit 20 plus points in multiple games. He's hitting threes lights out. I think he had 4 in the first half the other day. He's been really, really hot. Cleveland gives up threes, so especially with players they have out, with Mobley out, with Garland out. Don't know if Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder are going to play. Obviously, like I said earlier, they just got there yesterday with the Hunter trade, so showing is questionable, may or may not play. Biggest thing for Cleveland is still Garland and Mobley being out. Big defensive piece and big ball movement piece on the offensive side, plus points. So Portland loses a lot of defense with Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday is a good defensive player. If Denny Avdia doesn't play, that's a lot of their offense too. He's a good ball movement. He gets a lot of rebounds, assists. So very smooth player, very underrated player in my opinion. But I think I would go Cleveland on the spread side here. The model's been getting stronger. Portland's been struggling a little bit. Especially if Avdia doesn't play, I would wait on the injury report. If he doesn't play, Cleveland spread, I think, all day long. If he does play, I think it can be a little closer. But I still think Cleveland will probably cover if it stays around that 3-point mark. If you want to look at offensive ratings, Cleveland by far better offensive rating, 117 to 106. Defensive ratings, both are pretty good. Cleveland's at 110, Portland 112. So Portland's middle of the pack, Cleveland a little bit better than middle. Cleveland is without their best defender in Mobley, though. So he's only missed a couple games, so he'll still be reflected in that recent rating. Like I said, on the total, I would probably lean over. Not a huge fan on the total. I could see it going either way. The model's been flipping over more than it has been under, but injuries on this one could be a big deal. I think Cleveland on the spread is probably the better side to go. Unless you wanted to go player props, like I said, I think there should be some good player props again on this one too. Mitchell, Merrill, Tyson on the Cleveland side. Jared Allen's been doing well with Mobley out, and then just Sharp and Klingon on the Portland side. Kamara is usually good for a couple threes. I don't think he hit any last game, so you may see how he does against Cleveland, how he does at home. See if that might be an option you want to take, because normally he'll hit too. All right, now the last game is going to be Oklahoma City going to Denver. Model has Denver 115 to 111. Market still has OKC by about 5. With the way Denver looked playing against the Clippers, who were really hot in the last game, I'm surprised they have OKC favored by 5 right now. Denver was playing really well without Jokic. Jokic came back and scored 31 points, 12 rebounds, and they beat the Clippers by 13 points. I believe it was in LA. So I don't think they'll have much of an issue at home hanging around with OKC the way OKC's been playing. OKC still without Jalen Williams. They have Alex Caruso out. AJ Mitchell is out. So they do still have Hartenstein back. He looked a little rough coming back. If he gets things going a little bit more, that'll help. But I believe Denver and Jokic held Zubac to 7 rebounds in the last game. And that's normally where Hartenstein is the best. So Jokic looked good. I don't think many people saw him coming back right then, but he came back. He played really well. And Denver always plays OKC really well. So the model started out on OKC, made a flip on day 4, or on day 5, day 4 to day 5, and it grew on Denver. So even early in the week, it wasn't really having OKC cover the spread. I think I definitely would take Denver on the spread on this with the plus points. You can even bump it up a couple more points and get a little worse odds, but a little more relief at the end of the game, hopefully. Offensive ratings for both teams are really good, right? 116 to 117. OKC's defensive rating is better, 105. Denver's 112. Not sure Jokic is going to help the defensive rating for Denver, but he will definitely get rebounds in there. So that's a place Denver was struggling for a long time with Valanciunas out and Jokic out. They just didn't have a big man. Now they have both back, and I think that they will be right in this game all game long. Jokic playing for the home crowd again. I think that's my favorite angle is Denver covering the spread. On the total, it's got it at 226 on the model and 227 to 229 in Vegas. Not entirely sure on that, to be honest. I was going to say I like the over with Jokic coming back, but the injuries on OKC, they just haven't been looking quite as fluent, and I think this could be a game in an environment that will fluster them a little bit, prime time. I know they don't really get flustered, but if Chet Holmgren can't get off to a good start, he tends to get flustered. This is a team that I think can do that to him. Dort is hit or miss on threes, and he tends to be better at home. SGA, obviously, he'll be in there, but I like Denver. All right, here's the 3 games for the NHL today. We have Kings at Carolina. The model has Carolina as the most confident pick. Like I said, the confidence is just between the 3 games, so it likes Carolina better than Tampa, which I like better than Anaheim. There's no other reasoning to that number. Don't think 100% means that it loves Carolina. It just likes them better than the other games. So a lot of fluctuation there. 0.3 to 1 on day 3, 0.7 fluctuation. Day 4 to day 5 is a 0.6 fluctuation. Day 6 to day 7, 0.5 fluctuation. So a lot of inconsistency in the margin, but always favorable for Carolina by 0.3 or more, which is a pretty decent spread from this model. The Boston-Tampa game, outdoor game, stadium series game. So always fun to watch. The model's liking Tampa. Went from 0.1, 0.6 to 0.8. There's no factor in this for the fact that this game will be played outside. Like I said, you don't know how the ice surface is going to be. These games are sometimes tricky. Good goaltending on both sides. Good players on both sides. It should be a fun game to watch. I like Tampa. I think they'll probably pull it out at home. But like I said, those stadium series games, the winter classics, all the ones that are played outside, sometimes they get a little bit interesting with the weather, especially being in a state like Florida. I'm assuming they have the ice good. It looked like it was a little colder when they were showing it yesterday. They had it under a tent. So hopefully they have all these things figured out now. but I know some games in the past, there's definitely been some weather influence that is not going to be in a prediction at all. So last game is Vegas and Anaheim. Vegas played last night. Anaheim, I don't believe, played yesterday. Vegas was favored early, flipped to Anaheim, flipped to Vegas, and then flipped back to Anaheim. So there's been multiple flips throughout the week. The size of the spread has been 0.1 on each side for the last 3 days, 0.2 for 2 days before that. So the model's not really confident in this game. Recent play, I would lean Anaheim. The fact that they didn't play yesterday, I would lean Anaheim. But Vegas has won 2 of the 3 games that they've played. So, actually, no, never mind. Anaheim has won both games, 4-3 in overtime that they have played. One on November 8th and one on November 22nd. So both games were close. Both went into overtime. You could have taken +1 on either side of those games, and you could have won. You could have taken the over on either of those games, and you would have won. So if you think those teams are still playing like they did, what is that, 2 months ago, then maybe you want to go either side plus 1.5. I would lean Anaheim here. Like I said, they didn't have a game yesterday. Vegas did, and Anaheim's just been the better team recently. Vegas has lost 4 of their last 5 games. So that's all for the hockey. Let's get into the college now. All right, here's the first page. Only 2 pages today, not 7 or whatever it was with 140 games yesterday. Still ordered confidence highest to lowest from the model, the ones it finds most confident. Same as with the NHL. So we got Florida Atlantic, St. Thomas, Minnesota, Florida, Merrimack. Those are the highest picks. Merrimack, Furman, Purdue, Mount St. Mary's, Memphis, Iowa State, all the way down Tulsa, St. Peter's, all medium confidence. So this whole page, the model likes. Most of these spreads are going to be 5 or better for most of the week. So just look at some of the spreads, what they are from Vegas. If the model has been above that all week long, it's normally pretty confident. If it's fluctuating around that mark, then I would be a little more weary of it. But like I've said before, the smaller conferences, the model does have a harder time trying to figure out. I don't know if it's just because it has a harder time trying to figure out the teams that play up rather than the teams that play down in strength when they leave their conference or what. But the power conferences definitely are better predictions on these. So like the Iowa State, Kansas, the Purdue, Maryland, which Purdue, Maryland, it has had Purdue lower predicted. It started at 4, went up to 9, but I believe that spread is actually at 14. Purdue's lost 3 straight. Maryland is not a good team, but the fact that Purdue has lost 3 straight is the main reason pulling that down. Purdue definitely has the ability to cover that spread. So don't just look at it and say, well, it's been 5 under all week. There's no way that this goes over because it can. College is pretty crazy. So do your own research. Make sure you are seeing what you like in these games too, because these college games can get extremely tricky. A lot of teams will be favored by a lot of points, and then they end up losing by a lot of points in these lower conference games because there's just not much consistency. When you have only 1 or 2 star players, if they get in foul trouble, if they get hurt, anything like that, it affects the entire game. So on this screen, TCU, Colorado is the lowest confidence. It started on Colorado, went to TCU, and then Minnesota, Penn State, and Illinois, Nebraska. Those will be the power conference ones on this one. It's not really sure on a lot of those games. So Illinois, Nebraska should be a good game. Both are good teams. I think Nebraska's only loss was Michigan. TCU, Colorado, I'm honestly kind of surprised it started on Colorado. I've thought TCU was a better team most of the year, but that's about the spread from Vegas as well. So maybe it's just TCU on the road. I don't know. But TCU played Michigan really well. They've played a couple really good teams really tough. So that's all the games that I have for today. If you have any questions, let me know. You can leave them in a comment, and I'll try to see it. If I do see it in time, I will try to answer anything I have, whether it be player props, about a game, whatever. So do your own research. Make sure you're seeing what you like. Definitely no locks, and good luck out there.